domestic airline carriers in Nigeria, represented by the Airlines Operators of Nigeria, have canceled their scheduled flight suspension, which was set to begin on Monday. In a statement issued by the president of the Airlines Operators of Nigeria and approved by other members, they stated they had listened to stakeholders and the federal government's appeals not to withdraw their services. Joining me now to discuss is Yemi Dada, who's the Managing Director of Harrier Global Service Limited, to discuss this pressing issue with the aviation sector. Good afternoon, Mr. Dada. Thank you so much for joining us. So I think they're in a meeting right now, which supposedly started at 2 o'clock. They've reversed this decision to suspend flights, saying they received numerous calls from the highest echelons of governments with promises to urgently intervene in the crisis. What does that mean to you? What is this promise of an urgent intervention?
Well, the AON had been meeting with government since February, when the costs of Jet A1 started spiraling rapidly. And the government had made a commitment to provide 25 million metric tons of Jet A1 to the marketers for the use of the local market to cushion the effect of the global rise in the price of crude. The challenge is on a multiple level for Nigeria, because we have the price of crude rising internationally, and we also have the depreciation of the naira against the dollar. But the product that is brought in by the NNPC and provided through the PPMC is at the official exchange rate. And so what the AON had been asking for is that the exchange rate used for Jet A1 should be near the official exchange rate as much as possible, which means when even the private marketers are importing, the government should endeavor to provide them forex at the official exchange rate. So the intervention that will be happening should be such that it's not like a subsidy, but provide FX at the official exchange rate to the importers of Jet A1.
All right, thank you for that. There was some, division amongst the airlines over this call to suspend flights. Air Peace and Asman Air on one side, Ibom Air, Dana, Overland Airways on the other. Do you think the AON can still speak with one voice going forward after this?
Well, the AON is a very unique organization where you have competitors having to come together when issues of common interest come up. Sometimes there is a gap in communication. And don't forget, it's not just the scheduled carriers that are members of the AON. There are also charter operators, helicopter operators, and so on. So there is bound to be some level of disagreement of some sort. Let me not use the word disagreement, but divergence of interests, let me say it that way. So it's, and again, everybody does not operate on the same basis. Their costs are different, their inputs are different. So sometimes this kind of things happen, but I'm sure they are big boys. They will be able to manage themselves going forward.
All right. And you talked about the dialogue with the federal government going back earlier this year. The agreements back in March to buy Jet A1 at 500 naira per litre. Also the talk about having their own import license. Does that talk continue today? And I guess, why didn't we see any improvements since that, maybe call it an interim agreement was made since that time? What do you think?
Well, the issue of licenses, I think, is one that we should just put at the back. It shouldn't be something that will be an immediate solution, because airlines have their own businesses that they're running. It's out of desperation because of the black box nature of the pricing of the jet fuel that they are making this request. And when you see the templates, the pricing templates that was used and discussed at the meetings in February, you will find out that if the fuel was imported into Nigeria with 100% foreign exchange provided at the official rate, the landing cost at that time was about 320 naira per liter. And when you add on all the other costs, including the margins for the marketers, you arrive at about 340 naira to per liter in Lagos. I mean, you can extend with a little bit of 5 naira, 10 naira when you're going up country. Now, when you see that situation at 340 naira, and at that time, the price was already touching 600 naira, it made the operators lose confidence in the system. There was some feeling that there's some exploitation going on in there, because even in that template, there were queries about what they call a finder's fee and such other things. So what the AON should be focusing on in the conversation with government is just, let's see this product imported transparently enough and give effects to the people that are importing, so that even if the price of crude increases internationally, it's not such an astronomical increase, which we cannot really account for in totality based on how we price the product.
All right. Speaking of price, I'm very glad that you mentioned this. We spoke with Managing Director of Aero Contractors earlier today, Captain Abdullahi Mahmood, asking him about price. Like, why don't they just, if the cost of doing business goes up, why don't you just raise the prices? Here's what he said.
100, 700 naira, 680 per liter. The minimum ticket fare economy is not going to be less than 120,000 to 150,000 naira. So tell me, how many people can afford that in Nigeria? Are you going to say, oh, this is what I'm going to charge, and at the end of the day, you are going to go with 10 passengers, 20 passengers traveling, so you have not achieved anything? So what we try to do in all this is just try not to push this burden to the traveling public, because the only thing an airline can do is to increase the price. Imagine when the base fare has gone to 50,000. There was so much cry right and around the country that, oh, ticket fare is so expensive. Even at that, what the airlines are doing, we are just trying to say, okay, at that price, you look at it, if you don't have X amount of passengers inside your aircraft, still you are operating at loss, because the cost per unit is not even up there. Because at that time, we're supposed to charge at least minimum of 75,000 naira per seat. But see, the airlines are still subsidizing. We are charging less than $100 per seat per hour.
I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, it seems like they are very particular about not wanting to push the entire burden on the consumers, but this is happening in other climes. So what do you make of the price issue and ticketing?
Well, it's a basic realization that there is the elasticity of pricing comes into play here. And it's simple economics that if the disposable income of your market is not sufficient to afford your product, then it's either you restructure the way you price the product, the way you produce the product, and sometimes that can become very expensive, because if you want to restructure the way you produce the product, it will mean you have to probably change your airplanes to airplanes that burn less fuel for the average stage length, and then you can reduce the price. That's not a short-term project or solution. And the solution, like they're saying, is let's look at our cost component, the biggest one being fuel, which we are not able to actually manage properly, in the sense that the pricing from when you import to when you land is still leaving a huge gap of fat for the marketers and whoever it is that deals in the product on the other end. So it's just this basic fundamental issue that the disposable income in Nigeria is very low, and the number of people that will be able to afford bearing the full amount of the fare, if you're going to price it appropriately, will be very little. And for the current airplanes that they're operating, they will not be able to operate profitably.
Okay. So I guess I know you explained this earlier. You said it wasn't quite a subsidy, but then if that's the case and you can't push that full cost onto consumers, then are you not getting assistance from government to cushion the difference between what you're paying for the fuel and then what you're selling in ticket prices to your consumers? Is that not then a subsidy then?
No, it won't be a subsidy if government is providing FX at the official exchange rate to the importers of jet fuel. It is just going to be how the land product using the foreign exchange that they're getting from government. Right now, there is this black box way in which things are calculated. Some people will say, "Oh, we have a blended exchange rate. We get maybe 50% from the official market, and then we get 50% from the P2P or the black market to import our product." And some people will tell you, "We're not even getting anything at all. We're importing at 585 or 600 naira to the dollar for our product." But again, it's such a moving target because your product comes in probably 3-month cycles, and you are trying to do cost recovery. So there are so many things that regulation still needs to handle, not necessarily control the price, but control how some things are applied so that the marketers are not taking advantage of the situation. And I think that is what the AON is asking for.
I want to ask you, just to pivot a bit, still on aviation, the unions. There seems to be a bit of a division as to, because there was another strike that was supposed to have taken place today. However, I believe the National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers, NAAPE, and another body said that they weren't going to be, the ATSSA, they said they weren't going to be part of it. That's the Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. What do you make of that development and what's happening? I think that was on the minimum wage structure for airline staff. What do you make of what's going on there as well?
Well, it's not for airline staff per se. This is for the government agencies and the government workers. So people who are working the NCAA, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Federal Airports Authority, the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, and such other government agencies. They've had an agreement with government, and they've been discussing with government. I'm aware that they've had proposals that government has sort of agreed to improve their remuneration. And I think it's just the bureaucracy what they're trying to do is to quicken the process of this passing through the bureaucracy. But this in itself does not solve the problem. We've said it before that some of these agencies are overstaffed, and the privatization of the airports are some of the things that can be done to help cushion or remove the burden from government and improve remuneration for the people so that efficiency can be improved. Even in the airspace management agency, that privatization can come. I think it's just the Civil Aviation Authority that we cannot particularly commercialize or privatize. And it would be easy for government to then improve their wages when they have less burden from the other organizations.
So much happening in this sector, so much. The Spring Alliance, since that, have any collaborations, I guess, taking place, to your knowledge, since it was announced back on March the 16th?
Well, at that time, they had quite a number because the market was in such a state of flux. It was an informal arrangement, and I was aware that quite a number of passengers were protected on other airlines. So you could find 3 or 4 airlines coming to combine their passengers on one airline based on who has the better load at that time. That worked effectively for probably 3 to 4 weeks. But as the market was recovering, everybody got enough passengers for the capacity they had, and I don't think it has been such a necessary arrangement so far.
Well, we do thank you so much for your time, Mr. Yemi Dada, MD, Harrier Global Service Limited. Thank you so much for talking to us about the very hot button topic of aviation in Nigeria. Appreciate your time.